All right, so first thing we want to do is grab our stems for Wack Job. You can grab those at the URL on your screen, tinyurl.com/wackjobaudio. It's about a 500 meg download, so give yourself some time. Once you have it, you want to open it up and grab the stem files from inside. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And I have it here on my desktop. I downloaded it just a second ago. Double click. That's going to open up, and you can see it's extracting all the files. And now I have a stem folder here, Wack Job, with all of our audio in there. I'm going to keep this open here. So I've got it right there with all the different stems that are part of the project. So now I'm going to open up Logic Pro and go File, New. And this is the default new session view here in Logic. If it doesn't look like this, don't worry, we're going to go back and switch it, turn the advanced options on, and then yours will look like this. So I click Create, because there's really no other way if I hit cancel to actually close out of the program. And let's go and make sure your Preferences, Logic Pro X menu, Preferences, Advanced Tools, and make sure this is checked, and then all the rest of these, that's over here in Advanced. Show Advanced Tools should be on, and then all your additional options should be on as well. Then what you see on my screen should look like your screen. So next up, we want to make this window kind of nice and big. Okay, now we need to import all of our WAV files into here. So we're going to click one of these, and then I can go Edit, Select All. And we're going to drag those into Logic. You want it to say position 1111 at the top. That means that it's going to import everything right to the beginning of the session file. It'll ask, use new tracks, create new tracks. It actually won't matter at this point. I'll just go create new tracks. It's going to have to make 40 new tracks anyway for all our stems. It's going to take a sec to load these all in. And once that's all done, now we'll have all 40 of our stems in. I'll give it just one more second to finish the overviews here. This top audio file I can lose, so I'm going to click on that. The audio track, we're going to lose that because it's got nothing on it. Delete. All right, so next up, let's save our session so it's all together in one place in case something crashes or otherwise. So I'm going to save this back to my desktop. Save as, find your desktop on the left-hand side, and I'm going to call this Wack Job John Kubis. All right, we're going to save it as a package, and you can leave the default settings here, that's fine. Package is nice because it actually keeps everything in one folder, just actually in one file in Mac OS. All right, once we're done, we're going to hit save, and it's going to churn a little bit as it saves all of our audio files into that one place. It's actually making copies of everything. So take a second, and then we're done. So now we're looking at all of our stems. We've got everything in alphabetical order from A to Z, and actually, for some reason, the lowercase tracks end up here at the bottom. Again, as I preach, the job of a recording and mixing engineer is to stay organized when the rest of the musicians and the producer generally aren't. So what we want to do is get this into kind of a means of how we're going to mix. So I like to go in order from kind of the foundation of the track all the way up through the lead vocals, which is kind of the last thing, and that sits on the very top. So we're going to move all of our drum tracks up to the top of our session, starting with the kick. So that'll be under K, I think right now that'll be track 22. We're going to just click and drag that all the way to the top. Next up are snare tracks. We have a snare top and snare bottom, or snare underneath. You can drag them individually like I'm doing here, or in the newer versions of Logic, you can actually grab both tracks at the same time. That's kind of nice. Okay, snare underneath, that's the next one. Then I typically do hi-hat. So that'll be our third track. Is our fourth track. And then underneath that, we'll do our tom-toms. So that's tom 1. Tom 2. Using the mouse wheel here to kind of speed things up. Tom 3, which is down here. Click and drag that up here. All right. Oh, I'm off by 1. Next up, we want to get our overheads. So that's overhead left. That'll sit underneath tom 3. And overhead right. They're labeled OH. And then our drum room, which is a single mono room mic, I believe that was set out in front of the kit in the studio. Next up, underneath all of our drum tracks we've got there, the next track that we need to pull in is our bass, which actually, because of being alphabetized, it's actually in the right place. Bass keeper, bass in case, that's fine. Next most important tracks are all our guitars. So I'm going to move my claps track down a bit. We can move that kind of after our guitars. So we have most of our guitars here. The only thing is we have a couple guitars that are hiding at the very bottom of the session. So we'll go grab those, bring those up. I'm going to put them above the guitar telly track because these actually have a little bit more going on. All right, so next, once we've got all our guitar tracks kind of all put together, we have some synthesizer tracks. So those are labeled synth and then whatever their patch number is or patch name. So synth B3, synth bass, synth buzz, bass buzz, synth pads, and synth power chords. So we're going to take those, drag those up. And those will sit underneath guitar telly. So we'll just go one at a time here. Synth bass 16ths. Synth bass buzz. Synth pad 1. Synth pad 2. Synth power chord dry. So that should take all of our synth tracks. Let's grab our percussion tracks too. So percussion loop, percussion tambo, and claps. And then almost all the rest of the tracks are in good order. We're going to take our Gen Adlibs track. We're going to put that underneath, probably actually at the bottom of the session here, because we have our comp vocals, and then we've got the double track for that, and then some ad-libs. So now we actually have the session fairly organized. A lot of folks like to color code their tracks. That's not kind of my MO most of the time, but you can do that if you enjoy seeing your drums say one color, your bass and guitar tracks another color, and synthesizers, those sorts of things. So take a moment to listen through the different tracks, the drum tracks, the bass and guitars, and familiarize yourself with the session and how it looks and lays out. I'm going to open this up, and since we're only looking at our session kind of as a whole right now, I'm going to select all right here and edit menu, select all. And if I press the Z key for zoom, it'll actually zoom out the whole session. And then I can actually open this up if I want to see the waveforms again. So that way I can actually see the beginning all the way through the end. So we brought these audio files in, and while everything is in the session, Logic doesn't really know exactly what the tempo of the project is. So we need to tell it what that is. If you don't know what it is, which I don't know at this point, we can try some different tempos. I know we're somewhere in the 120 range, but you'll see that it'll start kind of getting off the grid as I let this go. So let's press play, and we'll see exactly where we fall here. Also, I need to turn on our click. So if I turn that on and it's highlighted, I should hear it click.
I haven't had my
Turn my output down.
medication.
It's bringing our click with it. So probably the easiest way to do this is to... I'm going to open the mixer and bring everybody's volume down so I can kind of hear the click track overall. So I can go here. Let's go select all. We're going to select all of our channels except for, if I hold option here, I can turn, or command, I can turn off master and output. I can bring the volumes down and keep the click track rolling.
I haven't had my medication.
So it's a little faster than 120. Let's see, 127 is my guess. Maybe a little faster than that. 135. Seems good as a start. I think it's a little faster. Yeah, it's starting to drag a little bit. Let's try 136. All right, let me scoot to the end of the session. Hey, it looks like it's lining up. All right, so to set your tempo, you can go up here to where it says BPM, double click, and I'm going to type 136. And now all of our tracks will line up to the grid somewhat. We'll have to do some drum editing here in just a moment. But now we have everything somewhat on a grid. So I'm going to rewind back to the beginning. Back to the mixer. So that is our window, open mixer. And we want to start with our tracks fairly quiet. This is going to give us some room to work with and to kind of dial in a mix overall. If you start with all your tracks at unity, by default, that would be 0. It doesn't really give you much room to move your mix around. Everything gets in the red really quick, and you're in distortion, and you really don't have any sort of headroom to balance anything. So what we want to do is bring these down to, say, negative 12, somewhere in there. And then we have a little bit of room to work with. I'm also going to bring my output fader down because even at negative 12, it's still pretty loud. So now let's check our mix here. We can work from there. So next step, I want to take out all of our drum track, everything except for our drum tracks, so that when we start working on our drums, we don't have to hear everything else. So that will start in our next video.